In this video, we're going to go over how to conduct a literature search using PsycInfo through the Fordham Library System. As a brief overview, there will be other resources to show you how to actually write a lab report, but for the purpose of this video, it'll be focused on what will go into your introduction section. So as you can see here, the introduction is usually comprised of a summary of previous research on a topic, the statement of your research question and your hypotheses. But I would say a bulk of this section, it's usually this and discussion are usually the two longest sections of a psychological research paper or lab report. And a majority of it is previous research that you would find through something like PsycInfo that we're going to go to in just a second here. So the first step, just going to your Fordham University Libraries page. And one quick note, you'll see that the first thing that pops up is this kind of Google-oriented single search. It's called OneSearch. So I'm just going to type in here my area of interest for research, which is sport-related concussion. And when you go to my results, you'll see I get almost 15,000 search results. And then I go down to the source type and you see over 2,000 of them are news. So like a newspaper article. We have over 1,000 from magazines, some reviews, all different types. Let's see here, there's audio, biographies, videos. So when you're writing a paper, these aren't usually the main things that you would want to cite. So if we actually go back, we click on databases. I'm just going to type in PsycInfo. And this is going to be primarily where you're going to find all of your APA academic peer-reviewed journals. So if I type in sport-related concussion here, you can see I already significantly limited my search in a good way. It's not so limited that I'm not going to be able to find resources available, but it is much more manageable to comb through than something like 14 or 15,000 resources, especially when those resources aren't academic journals. As you can see here, there are a few different types that are still considered in the APA database. I'm going to, because I'm really looking for academic journals, you can just restrict your search to just that, depending on exactly what study you're looking for or the purpose of your paper. So one quick note about the search features. You'll notice that I just searched kind of one term here, sport-related concussion, but there's a few other, let's say I was just looking for, not sport-related, but the term concussion. There's a few synonyms for concussion that other articles may be using that are outside of what I would typically use. So for example, if I use the term concussion, other people might use the term mild traumatic brain injury, and it really means, as you can see here, is a suggested search term. So mild traumatic brain injury, or MTBI, or concussion. So you can either write it out up here, or MTBI, or you can do as individual searches. So I'm going to use MTBI. I'm going to switch these to or. Go over in a second why that matters. And you see I get about 2,000 more articles now that use at least one of these three terms. So the reason that that's important is because we're using Boolean logic. So you'll see here, this is a nice little graph that explains this. So when you use or, and you have two different search terms, this is really good for synonyms, so things like concussion or MTBI or mild traumatic brain injury, where you want any article that mentions any of the three. When you use and, you're really looking at the articles that overlap that mention both terms A and B. So if I only wanted to find, maybe if I was interested in a study on the terms people use in sport-related concussion literature, I would look up something like MTBI and concussion to find only studies that included both of those words. Whereas, just to show you an example here, I think a really good example of this is another research interest of mine is sleep. So if I look up sleep and college students, see I get about 1,500 results here. If I change this to or, I get almost 275,000. So what's happening here is when I use or, again, just to show you the breakdown where you're encapsulating not just articles that mention both terms, but one or the other, I get many, many more articles because these are articles that mention sleep or mention college students, but not necessarily both. So here, let's see, here's a study just on sleep. We'll probably find some if we kept searching just on college students. So one kind of way to remember this is, or you're going to get more. So this is something that would be good if you're curious in the relationship of two things, but not each individually. And then the last term here to use would be not. So I really like to use this if I'm looking for like a subset of a larger sample. So if I was only interested in studies that looked at, let's say, female soccer players. So if I looked up soccer players, I said female. So female soccer players, but not male. So you'll see there's not many studies because these are only studies that looked at specifically female soccer players rather than male soccer players. So this is a really nice way to demonstrate how you can get a more limited search, but it's much more impactful because you don't have to, it's much more likely that these articles are of your research interest. So now to kind of talk about how to actually find your articles once you've done this search. So let's say that here you see this is open access, which is great. That means that you don't need any special permissions to view it. So you can either click on the title and click find full text there, or just click on the find full text link. See, this takes me right to the journal page. Then you just look through. Each page is different, but you can try to find where to download the PDF from. So here, full text, download article, download PDF, and I have my article right here. One quick note about this, if you cannot find the full article and you, let's say, only have the abstract, that's fine. This can help you to use the keywords to find other articles that are of interest. However, I wouldn't cite this if I only had the abstract. You really want to, the abstract is just again, a brief overview, a few sentences per section. To cite something, you really want to make sure that you have the full study available to you so that you're getting a better representation of what the researchers did. It can be tricky sometimes if you're, especially if you have a pretty focused area of research. PsycInfo might not have the resource available. So if you do click on one that says find full text, and it brings you to this page, this means that it's not readily available in PsycInfo. So you have a few options here. One, you can click the need help, ask a reference librarian, ask them if they can do a deeper dive. Maybe there's another way to search that isn't immediately available. But what I like to do actually is just copy and paste this into a Google search bar with PDF at the end and just search the internet for it. So this, sometimes researchers, science is very collaborative, and sometimes people will post, if they're allowed to, their full articles. So ResearchGate is a great website that researchers can post and share their resources with one another. So if it's not, sometimes it'll say download here and you can just download the PDF. If not, you can click request full text and you can send a little message as well. But if not, you'll get a notification and it just notified these authors, I'm interested in reading their article, and they, most times in my experience, will send you that article for free. So that's a really good resource as well. I think it's pretty rare to search a few different platforms like this and not be able to find the PDF. But if there is one that you can't seem to find that seems to fit your research really well, even just searching in Google can bring up some other articles that maybe cited that paper or are relevant to that paper that you can then use in your own study. Just a few helpful hints here. Entering keywords is great if you have a very broad net that you would like to cast. If you're looking for a specific article, you can enter the title of that article, the author. So if I go to, let's say, PsycInfo, let's say I've heard of this really cool sleep soccer study researcher, the last name McConaughey, that I wanted to look up. I can look up and see, okay, they have this article, there's a linked full text. And it takes you right to the PDF. So just a few different ways based on what you're specifically looking for, you can use the search. Year of publication. So if you're in some classes may ask you to only find articles that have been published in the last 5 or 10 years. Science in different industries changes very rapidly. So 10 years in one study or in one group of research might be an extended period of time where a lot gets discovered over a decade. So if that's the case and you have to, you can search just by the given year. So we're going to go back to the home page. And if you click on advanced search, publication year, you can go 2010 to 2020. And it'll just give you the results here that have been within that time frame. A few quick notes here about APA style. So all of the lab reports will be formatted in APA style. So citing the authors is one of the main components of this. There's 2 places that you would cite an article once you found one that you would like to incorporate into your paper. So the in-text citation, this is the kind of traditional way that you would see it with the author, last name, the year, and then the second place you would cite is in the reference list. So you would see something that looks like this with the author last name, first initial, the year, title of the journal article, title of the journal, volume, the page numbers, and then DOI if it's available. And this just helps other people find that same resource. So one thing about that, there's more slides that will be available to you as well that walk you through how to cite. If there's one author, multiple, 3 to 5 authors, APA style here, so there's a helpful OWL Purdue link. I would definitely recommend using that if you have any specific questions. But just a quick note, so if you actually go back to PsycInfo, let's say you find the article you want, you click on the title. If you actually go over here to Tools and click on Cite, you'll see that a lot of times it'll format the reference citation for you. So if you scroll down to APA, so American Psychological Association, you can actually just copy and paste this then into your reference list. And I would definitely double check it. Sometimes they're not always 100% correct, but a lot of times this is much easier than trying to format directly out of a PDF that you may have downloaded.